Welcome to The Explainer. I am so incredibly thrilled to have you here today because we are diving headfirst into one of the most fascinating mysteries of the human experience: how our brains actually process language and thought. I mean, we use words every single day, right? But have you ever stopped to wonder if those words are actually creating your thoughts or if they're just sort of dressing them up? Today, we're going to unpack a centuries-old philosophical debate on exactly that topic. And this whole debate actually kicks off with a wonderfully relatable, innocent question from a young boy in a catechism class. He just looks at his teacher and asks, "Father, when I think, am I talking to myself in Tamil?" It sounds like such a simple, curious thing for a kid to ask. But that little question, it triggers a massive, philosophical heavyweight bout. It strikes right at the absolute core of human cognition. Basically, do you actually need a language to have a thought? Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to break this mystery down into 5 rounds. We've got thought before the word, beyond just our senses, did we invent language, creating versus carrying, and finally, where did speech begin? Let's kick things off with round 1, thought before the word. The core question we're looking at here is whether we are literally incapable of having a thought without language. It's wild how sharply this divides the great thinkers. On one side, you have the traditional manual, which argues that language is absolutely not necessary for the intellect's work. The intellect sees things first, and words just come along later as clothes for a thought that's already been born. But on the flip side, we have famous philosophers like Rousseau and de Bonald, and they argue that there is simply no thought without speech. To them, you literally cannot form an idea without a mental chat room that was built by society. To really get what the manual is saying, picture this: the Saturday morning Zoom panic. You know the feeling. Your eyes snap open, you feel blind panic about a work meeting you're missing. You scramble to check your calendar, you realize it's actually Saturday, and you instantly decide to just stay in bed. Think about it. You experience that entire roller coaster of complex reasoning and emotion in a fraction of a second, way before your brain could ever formulate a grammatically correct sentence like, "I am perceiving light," which signifies morning, which signifies a Zoom call. You didn't do that. You just panicked, reasoned, and felt relief in total silence. The thought was totally there, without the words. Or think about this one. Imagine you're crossing the street near a busy bus stand and an auto comes speeding right at you. Do you stop and politely say to yourself, "A vehicle is approaching at speed. Prudence requires that I withdraw"? No way, of course you don't. You just jump out of the way. The judgment, the sudden realization that this is going to hurt, happens instantly. The syllables, the words, and let's be honest, probably some pretty rude ones, arrive well after you're safe on the sidewalk. The intellect's first act is to see, not to say. All right, moving right along to round 2, beyond just our senses. Are our ideas just leftover sensory experiences, or is there something much more profound happening in our minds? Let's try a quick thought exercise together. Close your eyes and picture a mango. Super easy, right? You can instantly imagine the bright color, that sweet smell, the sticky juice, and that's because you've experienced it with your senses. But now, try to picture the number 3. And I don't mean 3 mangoes or 3 coins. I mean just the pure concept of 3 all by itself. You can't visually picture it, right? Yet you understand it perfectly. Now try fairness. You can't see, taste, or touch fairness. Sure, you might see a friend taking the larger half of a vada and know that action is unfair, but the idea itself has absolutely no physical form. So here's the rub. The census school argues that everything in your mind is just a faded copy of something you once saw, heard, or tasted. But the manual points to concepts like 3 and fairness to prove that the intellect does something almost magical. It abstracts ideas that the senses have never even touched. The manual essentially argues that claiming our thoughts are only based on sensory grunts is absurd. It's like trying to build a first floor without a staircase. Let's move into round 3. Did we invent language? Meaning, could humanity have just completely invented language from scratch on our own? Here we have a massive clash between the manual and a group known as the traditionalists. The traditionalists take a very extreme view. They believe it is metaphysically impossible for humans to have ever invented a single word, which kind of implies we're so uninventive we couldn't even manage to agree on what to call a rock. The manual, though, offers a much more nuanced take. It says, well, it's not absolutely mathematically impossible, but it is morally and practically improbable in the extreme. And why? Because the meanings of words are completely arbitrary. Let me give you a great example from the source material to explain what the manual means here.
Imagine two boys sitting on the back bench of a classroom. They decide to invent a private code. 2 taps on the desk means, "Sir's looking this way." Boom. Splendid. They just invented a language, right? But wait a second. Here is the sharp question. How did they actually agree that 2 taps meant the teacher was looking? Really think about it. They had to lean over and whisper it to each other in a language they already knew, like Tamil or English. If you strip away all pre-existing language, all gestures, how does one boy propose to the other that 2 taps means anything at all? He would need a language in order to invent a language. It's exactly like a room locked from the inside, with the key sitting right there on the table inside the room. You can't start the very first language from absolutely nothing.
Which brings us to round 4, creating versus carrying. Do words act as the literal creators of our ideas, or are they simply the vehicles that carry them? There's this opposing view out there called the efficient cause trigger theory. They believe language is the actual cause of an idea. It's as if your brain has innate ideas just sitting in it like a loaded gun, and hearing the word pulls the trigger. But think about how absurd that can be in the real world. Imagine your boss walks into a meeting and says, "Hey team, let's increase internal synergy." Did hearing the word synergy magically create brilliant strategic knowledge in your brain? Definitely not. The word itself doesn't just generate comprehension out of thin air. The manual's view is much more grounded in reality. Imagine walking past a painted shop sign that says, "Idli dosa varai." Now, the paint on that sign didn't cook the food. The letters simply point to what is already steaming inside the kitchen. The word is a vehicle, it's not a womb. Think about it. Your stomach starts twisting at 11 a.m. long before you actually learn the word hunger as a toddler. The knowing comes first. The word is just a tool given to you so you can hand that knowing over to someone else. And here we are, round 5. Where did speech begin? The ultimate, most profound question of this explainer. This brings us to a highly charged debate with 2 totally distinct views. On one side, we have the perspective held by traditional scripts, that language is a divine gift. This view argues that God gave humanity reason, the physical organs for speech, and the first language itself. It points out that even the most remote tribes in the world have immensely complex grammar, and that history records 0 half-speaking peoples. On the other side, we have the secular evolutionary view held by modern scholars. They argue that speech developed gradually alongside the human brain, evolving over long ages from chimpanzee gestures, biological changes in the larynx, and primitive grunts. Both sides offer deeply differing perspectives on our origins, which really just highlights how profoundly complex human language truly is. And this brilliantly illustrates the whole heavyweight bout we just went through today. We've seen how the intellect sees before it speaks, how we grasp abstract concepts our senses can't even touch, the wild paradox of needing a language to invent one, how words carry ideas rather than create them, and that ultimate debate over where this incredible tool actually came from. It's a fantastic cheat sheet of everything we've uncovered. I want to end today with a truly stunning metaphor from our sources. The mind is the lamp. The word is only the window it shines through. Break the window and the lamp still burns, but nobody outside sees the light. It is such a profound way to look at your own thoughts. So the next time you have a brilliant idea, I want you to ask yourself, did your words actually create that thought, or did they just finally open the window to let it out?